Hello, NAGC. Welcome back to Webinar Wednesday. This is Bethany Hornbeck speaking, the Professional Development Director for NAGC, and I am thrilled to have you here on July 18th, 2018. We have an excellent presentation today. I'm very excited. We've been looking forward to having these folks for a few months. We are going to be hearing from the Office for Victims of Crime, which was honored at the 2018 Communications School. He is with the United States Coast Guard as a public affairs officer. He was voted unanimously by our Communicator of the Year committee for receiving this award, and he had many accomplishments in 2017, which is the time period that his award is based on. He will be talking about a number of things that they did, but not the least of which is a traditional and social media outreach effort that his agency undertook to educate the public about transnational organized crime. And Maria and Bethany, I assume you're ready to go. I again would like to welcome you to Webinar Wednesday. We are thrilled you've taken the time to put this presentation together and show it to us, and we are ready to pass the floor to you if you are ready to take it.
Thank you, Bethany. We appreciate that introduction. And just as we transition to our PowerPoint presentation, we'll get situated and then we'll introduce ourselves a little further.
Terrific.
So hello again, NAGC community. Thank you for having us today. We're really excited to share this information with you. My name is Maria Acker, and as Bethany said, I am the communications coordinator for the Office for Victims of Crime, but actually within the last 2 weeks, I've been promoted to a leadership position within the Office of Justice Programs, which is the umbrella organization for OVC within the U.S. Department of Justice as Strategic Communications Coordinator. But for 10 years, I was with OVC, and one of the primary functions that I had was to serve as a subject matter expert as well as the technical contracting officer representative for all our video productions. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but I would like my colleague Bethany Case to introduce herself further.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bethany. It's great to be here with you this Wednesday, and I am my title is Victim Justice Program Specialist. You know, a lot of stuff comes with that. But I'm a social worker by trade. So if that gives you any idea of kind of where I come from, and I've been working with kids and families in difficult situations for all of my career, and since coming to OVC, I'm working in kind of at that federal macro kind of level to help design and carry out and manage programs that can have an impact on those that serve them. So it's great to be here with you today.
So our goal today is to share with you how the Office for Victims of Crime, which we'll refer to as OVC throughout the rest of the presentation, how we leverage resources to develop compelling crime victim awareness videos. And to give you an overview of the presentation today, we're going to introduce you to OVC because it really sets the stage for how not only we approach communications in sharing victim-related issues in videos, but also in our publications and our social media and just all our communication assets. We'll talk a little bit about the communication support services that we have that help us do what we do here. We will share and tell you our story of what the OVC process is to specifically create videos that are sensitive to crime victims' issues, and then other OVC resources that are available.
So talking a little bit about what is OVC, just a little introduction to our office. We're a small agency. I'd say we have between 40 and 50 folks working in our office, and everybody is different. You can already tell from, you know, me and Maria's introductions that our perspectives and experience that we bring to our office are different. So imagine that across, you know, 40 or 50 different people. So we all kind of bring our skills and strengths to together to really carry out an important mission that we all love and care about, which is to enhance the nation's capacity to assist crime victims. And we do that by providing leadership. Our goal is really to help change attitudes, policies, and practices, really raise the bar in terms of how folks are responding to crime victims. We want to promote justice and healing for all victims of crime. So every age, gender, race, ethnicity, no matter the type of crime that they've experienced or their life story, we want to make sure that we're reaching those folks. And we also, we do this in large part, in most part, by funding grants and training and technical assistance. So we're a little bit different in that we're situated within the Department of Justice, and that's what we do. But it's a pretty cool office.
And just to add, we're going to be sharing a video in a moment, but to add a couple other key elements. When people think of the Department of Justice, they often think about law enforcement, FBI, DEA, etc. And if they're not thinking about law enforcement, they're thinking about civil and criminal litigation. But there's a whole nother aspect of the Department of Justice, and it's the people that hold the purse strings and create policies and programs. So when Bethany talked a moment ago about the fact that we within OVC are a small, multifaceted organization with 40 to 50 people, we provide to the field more than $4 billion in funding, and that's our agency alone. And the funding that we
Annually,
and the funding that we provide is not taxpayer dollars. It's through something called the Crime Victims Fund, which you'll hear about in a little bit, but it comes from forfeitures, penalties, and fines that federal convicted criminals have to pay into the system. So it's a great way to sort of serve, to take that whole cycle of the criminal justice system and provide back to the victims. With that, one of the things that we really did, and I just want to set the stage for the video that we'll send to you, the Office for Victims of Crime, as well as the majority of the rest of the Department of Justice, moved into the world of social media in about 2013. And, we still have a pretty risk-adverse approach to social media. It's really, for us, a one-way communication channel. But we do take note of how people communicate. And so we realized that visuals was something that would play and take the attention of others and communicate information in a very visual and compelling way. So in 2014, 2015, we worked to create 3 what we called social media videos. They're about 3 minutes in length to convey information about our office. And one is, what is OVC? So we use this video in presentations like this, and briefings, and in trainings. And so we'll let the videos set the stage for the rest of the presentation. So Mehdi, if you could play that now, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Bear with us a minute. It just takes a couple minutes for the video to load. Thanks. Here it comes.
Okay. Well, sometimes there are technical difficulties when sharing videos like this through a larger platform, and so we apologize for that, and we'll share with you our YouTube channel where you can see these videos at another time that's convenient to you. But hopefully that gives you a little sense of who we are and what we do. Bear with me a moment. There we go. With our videos, again, as Bethany spoke, OVC covers everything from child abuse to elder abuse to homicide, human trafficking, identity theft, crimes against children, and everything in between. And so as you can see from that little snippet of the video, we really try to address that. And for many of our videos, and you'll see this when we do share the next one, which we may only get about a minute or so in, we normally do put a disclaimer and a warning at the beginning, and on our site it does address that because we want to be sensitive to anyone that could be victimized. Statistics tend to show that if an individual themselves have not been victimized in some way, they most likely know someone who has, and so we try to be sensitive to that. So OVC's communication support services, we focus on being intentional in what it is that we want to communicate, informative with information that is relevant, timely, fills a gap, shares a best practice, and that it's innovative, that we deliver it in formats that people find engaging and useful and provides a resource where maybe there wasn't one previously. Our goal is always to get our messages, whatever it is that we are communicating, to the right people at the right time. And we want to answer the questions that stakeholders want to know. So oftentimes when we're working on projects, we're thinking about, you know, what are the current needs of the victim assistance field? We primarily work with those who serve victims, although we do provide some direct services. That's not the bulk of our work. And so our goal is to really focus the resources, the training, technical assistance, publications, webinars, products, etc., to respond to the needs of our community and consider their feedback so that we're always able to iterate and innovate with what it is that we share. So our primary vehicles to distributing the information that we do have is through our website, which is ovc.gov. We also have a secondary site that was actually created almost 15 years ago for a public awareness campaign, but it's crimevictims.gov. We do a lot of dissemination of information through our email marketing and our warehousing, which specifically responds the warehousing aspect to our conferences and training and technical assistance events. We have a Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube page where we disseminate our content. And so for the last 20 years, OVC has really had a very robust video production aspect to the work that we do, to our communications work. In 20 years, we've produced more than 500 videos. We have a very substantial library of interviews that touch a majority of folks and individuals and programs and resources that have been part of the crime victims movement since the 1970s. Our video production efforts have originally started as a way to augment print products. So if we created a training and technical assistance guide or program, we had videos so that the trainers had something that could engage the audience, right? In adult learning principles, you have to engage folks in multiple ways. But with the advancement of technology, video production, storytelling through images and graphics have kind of taken on its own life form. So our video production efforts have been developed to support training, education, special event productions. The Office for Victims of Crime annually sponsors a national awareness week, which is National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and we have an event where the Attorney General and others within the department recognize individuals, organizations that are serving crime victims and making their lives better. It's basically like the Academy Awards for crime victim services. Our video productions inform victim assistance, criminal justice, and allied professional communities about crime victims' rights, issues, services that are available. It enhances our public awareness efforts related to those issues. Our goal is oftentimes when people think about crime, they think about the law enforcement aspect, but where there is a crime, in most cases, there is a victim and there is somebody who has been hurt and aggrieved and needs to work through that. And so we're sensitive to that. So our video productions often deal with very sensitive crime victims issues. Again, everything from child abuse to human trafficking. We do not sensationalize our work in any way. We don't do reenactments of crimes that have happened. Our work has really focused on a style that uses real people and organizations to convey the messages and best practices we want to share. And it addresses a range of issues in a very victim-centered way, which Bethany will talk about a little bit more.
And just adding to what Maria also said, we're really looking to kind of lift up the authentic voice of crime victims. So we want to hear from them what their experiences have been, because that's the most credible, legitimate way to really tell their story. So the story that the example that we're sharing today is this video project, A Healing Journey for Alaska Natives. Responding to survivors of violence. And so we're going to watch just the beginning of this video as far as the tech will take us. And please, you'll have all the information that you need to go and find it online to finish watching it, and the rest of the series and other things in the future. But we'll go ahead and give you a sense of what another example of this story that we're telling. So sorry, folks, that we couldn't get very far into that. As Maria mentioned earlier, we still struggle with these kind of technical barriers in sharing these videos through these type of webinar platforms. But again, it's the videos are all online, they're published, and you can watch them anytime. We'll give you those links. But just to kind of paint a picture of the video for you in the absence of the video, which only will do itself justice, I just wanted to share a little bit about kind of the integration of music, visuals, and voices. So the music that you'll hear, and we'll get into the weeds on how that kind of comes in into the process in a few minutes. But the music is from the area. It's from Alaska Native artists. And so that was an important part of making this story authentic and having legitimacy with Alaska Native people, our audience, and really helping to tell their story. The other piece that I wanted to mention is the visuals that you'll notice throughout. So you'll see, like right here that we're looking at on the screen, you'll see some Alaska Native artwork. Yeah. And so this beautiful scenery of the Alaska Native, of Alaska, and all the beauty that nature has to offer. And you'll also see interviews and pictures from people who are telling their stories and sharing information. All of this, and you'll hear their voices as well. And so all of this kind of coming together really helps us to be culturally aware and tell the story of this culture in a very respectful and meaningful way. Mm-hmm. So how the heck do we do this? Mm-hmm. You want to tag team this one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I think before before we start talking about the process and we put this process design together, we do not do this in-house. So there are, within OVC, at the time, there were 2 federal communications staff individuals, and we oversee and lead the efforts of the work that's done. The office now has 3 federal staff, and we have multiple contracts and contractors that provide communication support services. So one of those is a video production company that we have worked with. And through that contract design, we lay out this foundation of, and I'm just going to summarize it quickly and then we'll go back into it, but where OVC, when we're developing training and technical assistance videos, we identify the need. What is it that we want to address? What is the gap we want to fill? Again, everything grounded at the center, that it's victim centered, that we are sensitive to, never want to have a video production that will re-victimize a victim through that interview process, through the engagement with them. And then we look to what the messages are that we're going to want to convey and who those messengers are. There's the very technical side of the production, going out and doing the work, the review process, the delivery and information. And then oftentimes it starts all over again. The Healing Journey series was a series of 5 videos, 4 to 5 videos that we have packaged.
I get them mixed up. We've done a lot.
Mm-hmm. And so we normally do things as a series, that there's one video that sort of summarizes, is more of a public awareness piece, and then each of the other videos get into more specific elements of what it is we want to communicate. So I'll turn it over to Bethany to add to just the overall setting the stage for what our storytelling process is.
And you know, Maria, I realized that we never paused to see if folks had some questions about what is OVC, and any questions about the short little snippets of the videos that you've seen so far.
Yeah, thank you for bringing us back to that. So Bethany Hornbeck, if there are any questions that the folks that are watching have, we're happy to take a few right now.
Thanks. I appreciate your pausing. Actually, we don't have any questions at the moment. We did just do a call for questions. So if folks want to talk with these guys, go ahead and enter your comment to the questions box, and we'll pass it on the next break. You all can go ahead and proceed.
Great. So we're going to break down this process, and really this, the opportunity to present on today's webinar to you helped us to kind of sit down and say, how can we communicate what this process is instead of the, we just live it and breathe it. And we have been for a long time.
20 years.
And so it helped us kind of break it down into these 5 different steps, all connected to our central priority of being victim-centered. So first, the very first kind of step that we talk through, and they don't necessarily go in, a sequential order, and we kind of go bump back and forth between the various stages. But first is we want to identify the need. In our office, we know that there are a lot of needs related to serving crime victims, bringing awareness to the issues associated with crime victimization, but also bringing an awareness to what victims want and need in the wake of experiencing crime and healing, and how to kind of tell that story to a lot of different people. So I would say that's kind of a starting point, is either a need has been, is becoming really obvious to us with our connections to our constituencies, or some type of force has kind of smacked us on the forehead that says, okay, we need to do something about this. This is a really big deal. And so we kind of start to formulate and set a goal for what is it that we want to try to, so we know we have a need and to address, a pretty awful thing for the most part. So how do we counter that and set a goal with how we're going to kind of balance out and help improve that problem or that need. And so we first kind of think through, who's our target audience? Who is experiencing the need? What are those problems associated with it? And what's a strategy that we can take? There is no magic bullet with any of this. But what's a strategy that we can take to kind of move this forward? And so a lot of that takes consultation and talking with folks who are experiencing these issues to try to figure out, what do you all think? What's important to you? And so a lot goes into it. Sometimes so Maria mentioned earlier, some of our videos are very targeted to being embedded within professional training to kind of reemphasize a certain point. For this particular project, it's really about building awareness of the issues, because folks don't understand, don't know, don't even have any idea if they're from the lower 48, and telling it in a respectful, authentic, culturally driven way. And then we select our delivery mechanism. So what are the appropriate ways to kind of get this message out, get this story out?
So some of the things, just to add to what Bethany shared, is that oftentimes we work in teams. So subject matter experts, internal and external to OVC, may be working and communicating about what the key needs are. And then in this case, for this video, selecting the delivery mechanism, we have really made a concerted effort over the last several years to digitize our video assets, to make them accessible we primarily use YouTube as our video player. But one of the things that we know is that in Indian country and Alaskan Native villages, high-speed internet may be an issue and they may not be able to have access. We do know from our metrics and things, more people are watching things on phones, which most people have. So we also want to make sure that it plays on multiple platforms. But for this product, when we were identifying the need, there's a biannual conference that happens, and we knew that our target was to disseminate this about 1,500 copies. And so we did hard copy videos that were packaged with a lot of the design work and the beautiful imagery that makes up this video into something that we could deliver to people in the traditional format, something that they would have, be able to take, use a DVD player. So those are things that we think about. We really, again, try to meet the need of what the audience is, what they would be looking for, and how best to communicate that. So one of the things, and I think Bethany and I will both tag team on this, over the years, this whole process is similar to us, to the analogy we use internally is it's sausage making. And we're putting something together. So there's bits and pieces that have become almost a formula to us that we know. So for those videos that are intended for training and technical assistance production, so there's going to be something where there's a delivery with a key trainer service provider, we know that we can go a little longer, that we can go about 12 minutes or so. But we do know, again, from our metrics, that oftentimes people may not go more than 3 to 4 minutes into a video. So one of the things that we have clearly been able to see is that normally with success, we can comfortably communicate 3 to 5 messages in one video. And that we begin to weave the messengers and the content together, again, being mindful and sensitive of the spectrum of victim experiences. So for this video, I think Bethany can talk a little bit about how we identified what the key messages were, which in essence created the topics for each series video, and then also how we identified the messengers, the individuals who were either victims or victim service providers or allied professionals that through their work service victims.
So for this particular topic and group that that we were seeking to kind of tell their story, it was pretty interesting. Like we might think, you know, because of our culture, that people want to hear how bad it is and how awful it is and show me the worst of the worst. And so what we have learned over the years in working with tribal communities is they've told us, no, we've been exploited for a long time now, hundreds of years. And if you want to tell our story respectfully, authentically, you need to tell the whole story. And first, you need to start off talking about our strengths, the beauty of our culture, our history, and what has kind of led to us being who we are today. And then you can talk about some of our challenges, because we do have some challenges, but showcase the ways that we're addressing these issues and how that's rooted in our strong culture. So it was really, I mean, that was necessary for us to listen loud and clear and to let them take the lead in kind of defining what that might look like. And so then we start to kind of weave together, okay, we have these messages. Of course, they're not, I mean, we're talking about a major crime problem. So of course, not all the messages are going to be pleasant. But how do you weave that together with the beauty and the strength of the culture to really effectively tell the full story? And then, of course, we have to be mindful and sensitive of every crime victim and those who are impacted by crime, so families, communities, friends, loved ones. Everybody has their own unique experience, and so we must be kind of aware of that and mindful in how we kind of craft communication materials about that.
And this is a good segue as we move into production, because one of the things, once we have identified who the messengers are, and Bethany will talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, but we do make sure that we have executed consent forms. And so there's informed consent, and that we, through our production company, we walk through. I mean, we've had circumstances where, particularly in this culture, there may be a lot of family-related abuses, and abusers may still be in small communities. And so we've had to think through that, talk, make sure that victims have the support, that things that were in litigation have been litigated and closed, so that there are no open cases. So those are all things that play into that. So as we move into the production aspect of it, once we've identified the messages and the messengers that we want to use, then we're working in tandem to create a creative outline. What is it that this video is going to look like? What is the bell curve of what we want to create? And so that outline is crafted, it's reviewed, working for DOJ, there's levels of reviews at each phase. We're reviewing drafts, and then going further, once we've started with interviews, those things are culled to pull the messages with the authentic voices that create the story and the narrative that's going to be used to be told. What you weren't able to see in the video is there's not a lot of pause words, crutch words that are used, because seamlessly the narrative is being built. It's not taking things out of context, but the beauty of high quality video production is being able to knit things together or create the sausage. We create detailed time plans and budgets related to personnel, travel, production costs, the creation or licensing of music. All that has to be coordinated. We need to make sure we have the money to do it. We do the background research on the victim issue that we're looking at. The Department of Justice, through the National Criminal Justice Reference Service, has a really large abstract body of research. Our sister agencies are the National Institute of Justice and the Bureau of Justice Statistics. So we're getting information about, what is the problem, what's the research saying, what's the statistics saying. We're not just taking qualitative information. We're looking at balancing the qualitative with the quantitative. And then, we start to put that together. And I'm going to move forward to the next slide, and Bethany is going to touch on the next pieces of the production.
And so part of the important part of production, which is so complex, is coordinating who the messengers, who we end up calling cast, because if they are kind of conveying these messages in the video, they become sort of the cast. And executing the consent forms that Maria referenced earlier, we want to make sure that they're comfortable and they want to be a part of this kind of project, and they understand kind of the scope of how their voices will be used. So some of the logistical issues that kind of get into this is traveling. So you can imagine traveling to Alaska during certain periods of time. That was scheduling was limited due to weather, due to cultural practices. For example,
it was salmon fishing season
and berry picking. So it wasn't appropriate to try to interfere with these really important annual events. So it was interesting, and got to kind of be working and be flexible with who's willing to talk to you, when, how, and that can change on the dime, for better and for worse. So sometimes a lot of people want to talk to you. So how do you balance that? Sometimes nobody wants to talk to you. Sometimes you need to spend some time with them. The producers need to spend some time there in the area just to kind of build some trust and sit with people and have conversations before they even start the cameras rolling.
And this production was very interesting because, again, we were dealing with Alaskan Native villages, which oftentimes are very isolated. The only way that you can get to them is by plane or helicopter. So just even the coordination of the equipment that would need to go, what we could take, who we could take, how much we could take. So each production that we work on is very different. This was one that definitely had a lot of moving parts, so it's a great example for the work that we're doing.
So we wanted to talk about, once we have kind of some sausage in the casing, and we have some items that are preliminary, we want to start doing some reviews with folks and running some stuff past them. Kind of as Maria described, after some of those messages and messengers are kind of knit together, we want to run that past folks again and make sure that their words aren't taken out of context. Make sure that they're comfortable with the way that this has been kind of woven together. So part of the reviews is with the folks who have been interviewed, or the professionals who are working and the professionals who might be working with those folks to make sure that everything is really on the up and up. But we also have to be considering getting buy-in from our federal partners, our stakeholders, our leadership, to make sure that this is something that can even make it out the door, that can be realistically vetted through the department, which all of you know as government communicators is, holy smokes, quite the challenge. So we start this review process really early, after some draft stuff is in the casing, because we want to get buy-in from people. We want to hear their voices and their input. We want them to see it reflected in the drafts as they move forward. We coined a term called, quote, friendly feds. And those were our folks that we kind of very strategically chose from some of our agencies who we knew they were on our team, right? They know about the issues. They also are invested in telling the story, and know the importance of that. But they can give us some really constructive, frank feedback without derailing the entire project completely. And then they can kind of start greasing the skids with their constituencies and their bosses to say, hey, and getting them excited. Hey, there's this thing that's coming. You're going to be asked to review it at some point. It's looking good. I've provided my feedback. They're listening.
This is the need that we have. This is how we'll be able to utilize, because when Bethany's talking about friendly feds, we've done work with agencies and coordinated outside of the department. So whether it's at HHS or Department of Interior or,
Indian
HUD.
Health Services. Yep, absolutely. So it's complicated. There are so many little tentacles to each one of these parts of the process.
And for us, this is not, I would say on average, and I'm just kind of thinking back on the work that we do, that normally, just with the exception of our work around National Crime Victims' Rights Week specifically, most of our other video productions take at least 18 months for us to work on, sometimes even more. It depends on, I'm going to use this term that's come into the process, but really is not something we've used previously. Sometimes things are a little agile in this. We may realize like, okay, we've identified this need, this product that we want to create, this production, and it starts out that the original thought was there would be 2 videos, but we've gotten such great interviews and quality footage, and that we realized, well, actually we could break this up a little bit more, and we've then made the project a little bigger. And but normally whatever we're doing is to fill a gap. And so if it doesn't exist, that's why we're creating it. We're not creating it just because we have that information. So what do we do with this? After it's all put together, our production company, again, we are looking at from the very beginning, from the outset, once we've identified who the audience is, we're thinking all along, well, how are we going to use this? How are we going to disseminate it? And so there's points in this where there's the rough cut that's reviewed, like after all the drafts have come in, then there's the fine cut that we're reviewing, and then there's the final cut or the final deliverable. And that final deliverable for us has to be in 508 compliant video formats. We want to also make sure that we're always modeling the way. So we even though as a federal communicator, 508 compliance is mandatory, we also really hold that and trust that for any individuals that need things in multiple formats, we've looked at that and explored it and delivered it in multiple ways. And so then we're developing our outreach and dissemination plans, how, our goal often is to create once and then to figure out how we can deliver across multiple communication channels. So we'll make snippets of the videos that then we can create a whole social media campaign around. We're going to conferences and exhibits. We're sharing things. We're sharing, again, these videos for this production. We created not only electronically, but hard copy, DVD options of that, and then provided significant copies to trainers and resource individuals that are providing resources in the field to disseminate. So I want to say we left at least 1,000 copies in Alaska with Alaskan victim service providers that could be shared out as they saw fit. Then we're looking at data and metrics, and this can always be the hardest piece, right? So, we can get the analytics related to Google Analytics and how it's playing on the web. We know how many videos have been printed and disseminated. We know what our social media is. We even, through our website, also have 4C as an option for us that kind of gives us customer satisfaction and user journey stories, and so we can see what people are doing. But as I had mentioned earlier, we definitely have seen that when we put things on the web or we put things on YouTube, people tend to work in really short snippets. So they may come in and they'll watch 3 minutes of it, and then we might see something later where maybe an individual who saw it wants to put it into one of their own presentations, and there'll be a month that we see an upswing where the entire video has been played hundreds of times because it's part of something that's a push with the field. So again, it's like we're delivering it and we want people to use it.
Some folks have even put our videos on their own, embedded them on their own websites because they felt like it, told the story they were trying to tell so well.
So it's really, a wonderful vehicle for us, how we can share information, especially, again, our world with just living in a world that's very focused on TV, movies, social media, digital. Having things told in a very engaging, compelling, visual way that hits your head and your heart helps us enhance that story that may not be told the same way, or the information may not be received the same way if it was only disseminated in a toolkit. So we had referenced earlier that we wanted to just highlight a couple different places that if you're interested in our work or more of the work that we do, the National Criminal Justice Reference Service is kind of our first line response center. They're able to answer questions. If you go to ncjrs.gov, you can actually see resources that are available not only from the Office for Victims of Crime, but even what other organizations within the Office of Justice Programs and the Department of Justice are doing. We've provided the links to our OVC website and social media channels. I would actually recommend that if you would like to peruse our video gallery, that you do that through YouTube. It'll probably play easier for you. And then again, since we're a component, since the Office for Victims of Crime is a component within OJP, or the Office of Justice Programs, you can look at that. So that really kind of just concludes our presentation for today. We appreciate, you know, having the opportunity to share what our process is. We know that there are many other agencies out there. There's nonprofit organizations, state government, federal government that are producing videos internally, as well as using external video production companies. But we were very grateful to have an opportunity to share what our process was, which has become foundational to how we deliver not only the Healing Journey video production that won Best in Show, but our other work. And at this point, if you all have any questions for us, we'd be happy to take them.
And I just wanted to mention real quick that just some words of encouragement to folks that we may have presented this like it's easy, but boy, is it complicated and complex. And, you know, Maria and I now have so much respect for each other and going through this process and really learning about, you know, the important different perspectives that folks bring to a process. And we were so fortunate to have some great leadership during this time that really pushed us to kind of figure out some tough stuff. And it's worth it. It is worth it in the end. It can be messy and complicated at some points, but to hear you know, folks who receive these materials and it makes a difference in their lives, we would do it over in a heartbeat.
Yep. And again, we're very passionate about the work we do and the resources that we have available. So thanks for letting us share this with you today.
Great. Oops. Okay, great. That's wonderful. It's a terrific information. I do have a question from the audience. Can you comment quickly on your approximate budget for the series?
So let's see, for this one, just for the videos, I think that this one, only for the videos, was, for the video portion of the contract, was about $500,000, $600,000, only for the filming, the production. That doesn't include kind of the, some of those end deliverables that were developed. How much do you think those? So maybe in some, maybe around $700,000?
We have, I would say it's kind of hard because I don't have this in front of us. And again, we've done more than 500 productions. So we've done video work where one video has been, you know, $15,000. We've done others that are in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. We have one production that was 21 videos. So it really depends on the content, the travel budget, where we're going, what the time frame was that we delivered it. But we, again, have had some generous resources and look at these as significant productions that have very, very long shelf life. And so it makes the investment, the carry-on investment, it may seem like a lot, but we'll get probably 5 to 7 years out of this series at a minimum. And so that helps us justify the budget.
Yeah, that's great. Another question is, do you have comments on where you learned to do this, or has this been on-the-job training?
So my background, which I didn't share all of it, but I actually came into the Department of Justice almost 20 years ago and started as a juvenile probation officer, and originally had worked for another sister agency within the department that did a lot of work with the Ad Council. And so for me, my experience has come from the majority of my work in my career has been around public awareness productions, advertising, campaigns, etc. We have, and I think Bethany can speak to this too, because she has had a really interesting career as well. We've been very fortunate that for probably 20 years in different aspects, we've worked with one primary vendor and have sort of created a lot of this, the process and style together. So I guess in that aspect, I would say it's on the job training. Yeah. But we really, it's worked, and it's a formula that continues to work for us.
And I think part of it is also bringing in our team members or other stakeholders and asking for help and asking for guidance, watching things, seeing things that we were like, that's a really good example of what we want to try to do, and then modeling some stuff after that.
And we definitely look for innovations. As Bethany said, in the past, we've been very blessed with very innovative leadership who has let us look to, again, just even the concept around social media videos and being able to do that was something new. The way we do captioning is a little, has evolved over time. And so, we really, this is not just for us, someone with a camera. Things have simplified a lot, that oftentimes, even now, we'll get queries from folks that maybe what they have is just a camera and Apple Pro to do their editing. But we have worked with people who have been in the industry for a long time, working on, different news shows and programs and documentaries. And so that's the style that we have really subscribed to and has worked for our audience.
Yeah. Great. Thanks so much. Well, we're out of time, and I think we don't have any more questions on the list, so I want to thank you guys so much for coming to Webinar Wednesday today. I want to thank all of our participants for joining. Like I said, keep an eye on your emails on the website, and we will have some information about our upcoming webinars here soon. Thank you so much, Maria and Bethany. We've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.